Good evening. I'm Stephanie Becker, and I'm excited to be here tonight with the school board to go over some current trends that we're seeing with religion in schools. So let's go ahead and get started for tonight. The purpose of my presentation is to inform and guide USD 435 on current issues of religion in schools. Our agenda for this evening is to go over religion in public schools history, religion in schools and what that looks like, student rights, parent rights, employee rights, and finally, we'll finish up with the Equal Access Act. The First Amendment requires public school officials to show neither favoritism toward nor hostility against religious expressions such as prayer. That comes from the U.S. Department of Education 2022. Religion in public schools, when we go to look at the history of religion in public schools in 1962, the ruling Engel versus Vitale is that school-sponsored prayer, even non-sectarian prayer, violated the Establishment Clause. In 1963, it banned organized Bible reading for religious and moral instruction. In 1965, Section 8524 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, amended by Every Student Succeeds Act, requires the secretary to issue guidance to both the state educational agencies, which are also known as SEAs, as well as the local educational agencies, which are known as LEAs, and the public on prayer. And that came from the U.S. Department of Education article of 2022. And then finally, in the year 2000, prohibited school-sponsored prayers at high school football games. And that's from Pew Research Center of 2019. When we look at religion in schools, one thing that we're going to look at tonight is prayer and how that is viewed. So, students may organize prayer groups, religious clubs, things such as see you at the pole gatherings before school, to the same extent that students are permitted to organize other non-curricular student activities groups. And that came from the Department of Education in 2022. It also stated that students may express their beliefs about religion in homework, artwork, and other written and oral assignments free from discrimination based on the religious perspective of their submissions. So again, they shouldn't be counted off of because of their expression and their beliefs. It should be treated like anybody else's. And finally, school officials may not mandate or organize prayer at graduation or select speakers for such events in a manner that favors religious speech such as prayer. And the authors did note in that circumstance, if you did have a speaker who did use prayer within their speech, the school could also put in a statement that it was not affiliated with the content of that speech. In looking at curriculum specifically in school, teaching about religion is both constitutionally permissible and educationally appropriate. It's okay for us to look at how religion came about, the history of religion, as long as we're not projecting our beliefs and values onto other students. Our students. Public classes may study the Bible if they include critical readings and allow for open inquiry into the history and content of biblical passages. Again, we're not passing on a belief system or trying to talk students into becoming a Christian or a Methodist or whatever religious group that you're representing. We are just basically providing them with information and allowing for that open inquiry. Finally, when looking at curriculum, the courts have said that no student should be forced to sing or play music that offends their religious sensibilities. Those all came from the Pew Research Center article. And again, just in thinking of that, I think specifically of our music programs that we happen to have around holidays. We can't force students to participate in those or sing those songs that may be religiously centered. In looking at religious expression in schools, schools may not observe holidays as religious events or promote such observance by students. And that came from the U.S. Department of Education in 2022. Students may display religious messages on items of clothing to the same extent that they are permitted to display other comparable messages, as well as students have a right to distribute religious literature to their schoolmates on the same terms as they are permitted to distribute other literature unrelated to school curriculum or activities. So, in other words, what's that saying is if there are other school clubs, curriculums, or activities that are distributing material to students within the student body, we can't say that students who are distributing religious criteria can't do that, because that would be a violation of their constitutional rights. Speaking of rights, let's look a little bit deeper into the different student rights. So, Tinker versus Des Moines School District in 1969 was a case where the court ruled that school authorities may not suppress expression by students unless that expression significantly disrupts school discipline or invades the right of others. Students acting on their own have the same right to engage in religious activity and discussion as they do to engage in comparable secular activities. Students may offer a prayer or a blessing before meals in school or assemble on school grounds for religious purposes to the same extent as other students who wish to express their personal views or assemble with others. They may not engage in religious harassment of others or other aggressive and unwanted behaviors as well. Schools may neither favor nor disfavor students or groups on the basis of their religious identities. And those all were from the Pew Research Center of 2019. Parent rights. Parents may opt their children out of a lesson or class or activity that contrasts with their religious belief. So, just like we talked about with those holiday programs, that would be an example of something that they could opt out of. Parents also have the right to enroll their children in private rather than public schools, whether those private schools are religious or not. And based on federal or state constitutional law or pursuant to state statutes, schools may be required to make accommodations that relieve substantial burdens on students' religious exercise. Employee rights for teachers, administrators, as well as others, just school employees. When acting in their official capacities as representatives of the state, teachers, school administrators, and other school employees are prohibited by the First Amendment from encouraging or discouraging prayer and from actively participating in such activity with students. That is from the U.S. Department of Education. Teachers may take part in religious activities such as prayer even during their workday at a time when it is permissible to engage in other private conduct. Specific examples of that would be before school or over their lunch break when they're allowed to do other activities such as make private phone calls and those types of things. Teachers may participate in their personal capacities in privately sponsored baccalaureate ceremonies or similar events as well. Again, as long as they are not within their official capacities, it is something that is okay and can't be taken away from them as a right. Looking at the Equal Access Act, it was designed to ensure that student religious activities are accorded the same access to federally funded public secondary school facilities as are student secular activities. So, again, it should be equal across all populations, no matter if they are a religious institute or club or organization, or if they are an outside organization such as Boy Scouts. They all should have equal access. This may include things like a prayer service, a Bible reading, or other worship exercises. The school must also allow student groups meeting under the Act to use school media to announce their meetings, just like they would other organizations that are using school media to communicate their meetings as well. The act also permits that religious student groups allow only members of their religion to serve in leadership positions if that affects the religious content of the speech and at the group's meetings. And those were all from the U.S. Department of Education 2022 article. Looking at USD 435 currently in our current board policies, we do have that no religious belief or non-belief shall be promoted or disparaged by the district or its employees. Students and staff should be tolerant of each other's religious views. Students and staffs may be excused from participating in practices contrary to their religious beliefs unless there are clear educational issues of overriding concern which prevent it. We also have an excerpt about teaching about religion, as well as religion in the curriculum and school activities, which follows along with the guidelines that I previously reviewed underneath the both the Pew article and the U.S. Department of Education article. Finally, our board also looks at religious symbols in the classroom. They are permitted as long as they are part of the curriculum. Holidays, which have a religious and secular basis, may be observed. However, school vacations shall have secular designations, such as winter vacation instead of Christmas vacation. Graduation and other ceremonies, school ceremonies shall be secular in nature. While recognizing the significance of tradition, the law requires that graduation exercises and dedication ceremonies be secular in nature. Parents or guardians may request that students be excused from participating in activities for religious reasons, and parents must complete the district's activity participation opt-out form. This assignment correlated with the standard because through the resources provided, I was able to reflectively evaluate the current laws and regulations as they relate to religion and education. From this information, I was able to apply the knowledge I gained to communicate about necessary responsibilities of the school in order to inform our district about current laws on religion. This promotes the current and future success of both students and adults within our district and community of stakeholders. As a future leader, I would continue to monitor and ensure adherence by making sure that when board policies are amended yearly, we are staying current and up to date. This assignment was really relevant to my current learning because it allowed me to dive deeper into my understanding of current laws and regulations in regards to religion in schools. I feel like I have a better understanding and a deeper understanding, as well as just am more aware of things that I need to be aware of when I become a school leader. I was surprised that our board has, I felt like, a good representation of the laws that are currently being practiced. And I felt like this assignment definitely better prepared me for a position as a future leader. Finally, this assignment will influence the decisions I make as a future school leader because it has made me more aware of current laws. Specifically, I will make sure to communicate with my staff what is appropriate for them to use within the curriculum when it comes to religion. I'm also better prepared to discuss and communicate with students and parents what their personal rights are as they relate to religion and opting out of activities. Finally, I'll end with my references that I used for this presentation. And I thank you for listening to me. And of course, if you would have more questions, you can always contact me. Thank you.